Today we're going to learn how to find the roots and the minimum and maximum value of quadratic functions.
In this video tutorial, we're going to learn how to find the roots and the minimum or maximum value using a TI-83 calculator. So if we take a look at this quadratic function, negative x squared plus 8, here we have it graphed, and we're going to have to find the max to start. So the max is this coordinate at the top of this curve, and in this case it's going to be 0, comma 8. So to write that simply, we can do open parentheses 0, comma 8, close parentheses. But what about the roots? The roots are the exact location or coordinate where the quadratic function or parabola cuts across the x-axis. So the left one is going to be negative 2.8 comma 0, and we're going to write that like open parentheses negative 2.8 negative 2.8 comma 0 close parentheses. And what about the right one? It's going to be 2.828 comma 0. So this one is symmetrical. It cuts the center, cuts right across the y-axis, and we can write 2.8 comma 0. Yeah, beautiful. Now, how do we do that in a TI-83 calculator? This was pretty easy, right? So I'm using actually the Desmos app on an iPad, but it's a little bit different on a TI-83 calculator. The first thing that you're going to need to do is plug it into the y equals window, and here I see that we've got negative x squared plus 8 already plugged in. We're going to graph it, and here we see it looks identical to what we saw a moment ago on the Desmos app. How do we figure out the max? To do that, you're going to go to second, trace, and then you're going to go down to maximum. All right, so we know that that's the exact point right there. And it's prompting us left bound. Is it to the left of the highest point? We're going to press enter, and we're going to go to the right a little bit. It says right bound. We're going to go to the right of the top, or the maximum. We're going to press enter, and then finally it wants us to guess, and we're going to press enter one last time. And when we do, it determines that the maximum is negative 1.29 e to the negative 6. This is scientific notation. It's a super small number, and it is essentially 0. So that's the x value. What about the y? The y is 8, and we just said a second ago that, yeah, that is the coordinate, 0 comma 8. So we just figured out the maximum value. What about the roots? How do we figure that out? So now instead of going second trace max, we're going to go second trace, and we're going to go to 0. So I'm going to press down once to go to 2, and I'm going to press enter. And let's figure out what this left root is, which we know is negative 2.8 comma 0, but we're going to figure it out here. So right now I can see I'm to the left of the root, and I know that because the cursor is blinking. I'm going to press enter. Great, and now it wants us to go to the right of it. Is it right bound? Sure is now. I'm going to press enter. And finally, it wants us to guess that point. So we press enter one last time. And here it is, negative 2.8 comma 0. So we just figured out what the left root is. Beautiful. So now let's figure out what this right root is. Again, we're going to have to go to second, trace, and we're going to go down 1 to 0, or simply press 2. And it says left bound. Are we to the left of this coordinate? And we are now. I shifted over, and I can see that it's right to the left of the right root. So I'm going to press enter, and now I'm going to go down just a little bit, and I'm going to press enter one last time because we're right bound. And finally, the TI-83 calculator is guessing it, and here I see x equals 2.8 comma 0. So here we've got the right root. Let's do one more quadratic function. Here we have 2x minus 5 times x plus 4. And you'll notice I punched it into the y equals menu on the TI-83 calculator, including the parentheses. And so when we graph it, we can see that it's sort of curving down, right? But we don't see the bottom of the curve. And I know that typically when we go to zoom, typically we press 6, right? And within this standard mode, we do not see the bottom. So we're going to have to readjust. To do that, we're going to press window. And let's look at the y min and the y max. So the y max is fine. It's totally good at 10. The y min, however, is what's problematic. So let's go down and let's change this to negative 20 and see what happens when we graph it now. We still don't see the bottom of this curve. So again, we're going to have to go to window, and let's experiment with negative 25 and see what happens. So this is the y min at negative 25, and yes, finally, here we've got the minimal value of this curve. And so to find that, we're going to go to second, trace, and instead of going to 4 maximum like we did earlier, we're going to go to 3, and we're going to the minimum because we can see that it's at the bottom of this curve, and it's asking us, is it left bound? And right now, no, it's not to the left of this curve. So I'm going to shift over a little bit by pressing the left arrow and press enter. We're going to shift over to the right so that we're right bound, and we'll press enter, and finally it wants to guess. And what is it? The minimum is, the x value is negative 0.75, and the y value is negative 21. So to do that, I'm going to delete max because there is no max in this case. Open parentheses, negative 0.75, comma, what? Negative 21.125, close parentheses, and we just found the minimum value. Let's review roots real quick. Again, we're going to go to second, trace. Let's figure out what this left root is. We're going to go to 0, press enter, and we're going to shift over a little bit, and we're just to the left of where it intersects the y-axis. I'm sorry, the x-axis. I'm going to press enter, enter, boom. So what is this? What is this root? It's negative 4 comma 0. What about the other side? We'll go to second trace. We're going to go down 1 to 0. I'm going to press enter, and let's shift all the way over. All right, so we're cruising over, and we're just about right there. We're going to press enter. It wants us to go right bound, and let's press enter and finally guess. And this one is positive 2.5 comma 0.
Hopefully now you know how to find roots and minimum maximum values of quadratic functions. If this video was helpful, subscribe to us on YouTube.